Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show.
Hello, welcome back to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I'm Greg, and I'm here with our normal host, Chad Hufford. And Chad, today I have a question for you.
Okay.
I had a meeting with somebody that had came in, had some questions. And during the course of this meeting, this guy actually asked me a question that I don't hear very often. That was, I want you to make me a retirement plan. That's it. I don't want a portfolio. I don't want you to mess with my investments. I don't even care if you really look at my investments. In fact, probably not. And as far as like an ongoing accountability piece is concerned, like I don't really feel like I need a review or anything like that. I just want you to make me this plan. What are your thoughts when you hear that sort of thing?
So he just wanted you to write him a plan and push him in the right direction.
Yep, that's it.
So that's kind of interesting because a lot of times we get people that are actually more interested in the portfolio piece. They don't want a plan or don't realize they need a plan. They're only interested in, what investments or what types of funds do you think are going to do well, right, or something like that. But sometimes we do run into that where people only want the plan. And I really feel like the two are absolutely connected because the plan dictates a certain type of portfolio. So a couple little thoughts on this, and then if you have additional questions, we can unpack this further. But on one side of it is if you have a plan, there's certain tools that can make that plan work. So for example, if you hired a personal trainer and your goal was to run an ultra marathon, your plan would be based off that. But the tools, the exercises and the implements that you would use to execute that plan would be very different than if you hired that same personal trainer to get you ready for a powerlifting meet. And the plan, the workout protocol would be based on the goal, which this guy was asking for, which is good, realizing that I want a plan connected to my goals. Sure. But the portfolio has to serve the plan. So you really can't disconnect any of those three. When you try to disconnect the goals, the objective, the plan, or the portfolio, it really throws the whole thing off.
Right. And so within more discovery and more talking with this person, it sounded like, part of what I was up against is almost an emotional attachment to what he had picked for his portfolio.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you see that very often, but it was almost like, hey, I went on XYZ website and found that this is the most efficient thing for me. And unfortunately, we didn't get really far enough to be able to dive into that any further.
So sometimes we will run into that. And if we continue down this metaphor, it would kind of be like somebody going to a personal trainer and saying, these are the exercises I want to do, and this is my goal, make a plan that fits. And now you're trying to potentially move or push a round peg through a square hole where, yeah, can we make it work? Possibly, but they may not necessarily be ideal. So you're trying to force the tools
right
to work the plan. And I think the risk is if you're more committed to the tools than you are the plan, when push comes to shove, the plan is going to be the piece that falls apart. When in reality, it should be the other way around. As the goals change and as the plan evolves, then our tools might need to be updated to fit the revised plan, the revised objective. But in this sense, the tail is kind of wagging the dog. He's saying, I want this is how I'm investing one way or another. I've got some goals over here. I want you to build a plan that attaches the two. And it potentially puts his plan at odds with his investments.
Exactly. The picture I'm getting is, teaching somebody to do a whole bunch of bench presses in order to go and run that ultra marathon.
Or, going back to your former life as, as a welder and teaching that, it's like somebody coming to your class with a tool bag and saying, these are the tools I'm going to use. This is what I want to weld. Teach me how to make that work. And you're like, well, you've got a screwdriver and an anvil and some of the other things. Like, I don't know that we're going to be able to weld much with these.
If we could do this, we're going to be on the cutting edge of some kind of cool technology.
But now you're trying to force a plan into your investment strategy rather than creating an investment strategy that serves the plan. And I think it kind of brings up another thing too, and that's the sustainability of it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, a good financial plan that isn't being followed isn't really much of a plan at all. We've talked to people that are like, yeah, I know I've got a budget. I don't really follow it. Well, then you don't really have a budget.
Right.
Or, no, I've got a diet. I do it when I feel like it. Well, that doesn't really work either. And the plan requires commitment. And that's where the engagement really starts. And then you see, okay, what types of tools can I get that fit this? And really you disqualify a major part of the investment universe because it just simply doesn't fit the plan. So it honestly makes everybody's job easier when you have a clear picture of the plan. You're like, we don't need to even consider all these tools. There's 30,000 something mutual funds. Mm-hmm. We don't need most of them because they simply don't fit our plan. And I think you add unnecessary frustration, but also you reduce compliance. You reduce the chance that the plan will actually be executed because the investments are your primary concern.
A big part of that piece is, like I said at the beginning, he was apprehensive to doing any kind of accountability or a plan review. I like to tell my clients anyway, hey, I'd like you to commit to coming in once a year so that we could check over your plan and make sure that no major goals have changed or anything like that. So it just didn't seem like, it seemed like he's coming in for a plan, but I have all these other things that make it to where it makes it a tough relationship in order to work that way.
Well, it doesn't sound like there's much relationship at all that he's looking for.
Right.
He wants a document. And in a perfect world, that might work. But I think it's important to have that coaching and accountability because there will be a time where motivation fails and where he won't feel like executing that plan, or there'll be confusion, or who knows, maybe his plans will change. Think of like a basketball coach that has a game plan and everybody knows what the plan is. Right. And you go into the game and the coach is like, all right, I'll see you guys afterwards at Pizza Hut. And there's no in-game revisions. There's no adaptation. There's no adjustments because the game will inevitably provide you with inputs or information that you didn't have before the game. So you come in with a plan. That's important. But, maybe your star point guard sprains his ankle or gets into foul trouble, or the other team's center fouls out or something. Like it changes the dynamic. So General Eisenhower said, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. We've talked about this before, but it's not just the accountability to stick with the plan. This is what you're talking about in your reviews. It's, hey, life throws curveballs. What are the things in your life that have changed over the past year that we need to look at and make sure the plan is revised based on that? Because the plan it's a living document. It's not static. It isn't a piece of paper that you give somebody, shove them in the right direction and hope everything works out well. Because again, that is very much like a coach setting up a game plan and then saying, hey, we'll touch base after the game. You've got to have somebody working with you in live time as your objectives change, as life changes, might be challenges you didn't think you'd face. It might be opportunities you didn't think you'd have, but there's too much that changes in life to just say, we have this set in stone concrete document, and I'm just going to take this and execute it for the next 20 years.
Right. That's just totally not practical.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
I think most common what I see when I come up against these reviews that we do is actually normally the opposite. Normally people come in and, okay, Greg, what do you have for me? And really what it is it's actually more about the client and what is going on in their lives and what's changing and those sorts of things.
Exactly. It's finding out what makes them tick, especially with folks maybe we haven't worked with as long, helping them better understand their goals. I mean, sometimes it's giving somebody an outlet to unpack what are their dreams, what are they trying to accomplish, what are they afraid of? And obviously we do some of that at the beginning of the relationship, but it's an ongoing process. Helping people figure out what they're retiring to. Those types of conversations change the goals. And if the goals are changing, the plan might need to change. If the plan changes, then we might look at changing the investments. But a lot of times people go about the other way, and they're looking at the economic data, or they're looking at what people think might be happening in the markets or what just did happen. And they're looking at changing their investments, but they're ignoring their goals. They're ignoring the plan. And really it should be the reverse. It should be the focus on where are we going? What are our objectives? What is our plan or our pathway to get us there? And then and only then do we need to adjust the vehicle or the tools that we're using to execute the plan.
Right.
But so many people start with the investments, and like you said, that's what they get attached to, or that's what they get frustrated with. We have the opposite too, where sometimes people, they have a perfectly fine investment strategy, but they're just investing through a very difficult, uncertain time. And their frustration is really around the greater uncertainty. It's just easy to pick on a portfolio that's temporarily down 10, 15%.
Right. And so just for clarity's sake, if somebody comes over to you and they say, hey, Chad, the plan is working good. What are you wanting to do to change up the investment piece? How do you respond to that? Because it seems like it's a question like, are you guys going to make some changes here?
Well, I think it's important at the beginning, at the outset of the relationship, to make sure people understand, to relay that information, that if your goals aren't changing, we're probably not going to make major adjustments to your portfolio. There'll be fine tuning, there'll be constant rebalancing, but those aren't even revisions or refinement. It is just tuning, making sure that the investment continues to fit the already stated plan and objectives. But yeah, we don't tweak the investments that much unless what we're trying to build starts to evolve.
Right. That makes total sense. I'm trying to think if I have any other questions for you regarding this particular topic.
Well, one of the things that, just going back to the idea of a review, that's also really important is it resets our focus on the long term. If we're looking at our investments, there's no really objective measure to compare them against. And it can get us very short-sighted. Maybe we compare it against a benchmark, or we just compare whether it was up or down. And it's very easy to get off track. When we sit down with a review, it allows us to look at, am I on track with really the only benchmark that matters? And that's my long-term goals.
Sure.
That's my long-term security, my financial independence. And a plan review allows us to look past the distractions of the day-to-day. Not just from a financial standpoint, just in general. Like, how many people spend time thinking about what am I going to need? The version of me that's 20 years older, the 63-year-old version of Chad.
Right.
What is he going to want? What is he going to need? What do I want his life to look like? Those aren't questions that human beings typically ask. And we have the benefit, the blessing of being able to do that, pull people out of the moment and project into the future and say, what is this what do you want your life to look like? Where do you want to be? What do you want to be doing? Who do you want to be doing it with? What, if any, adjustments do we need to make today to make sure that we're on track for that reality in the future?
Right. It seems like so much of this is about that thinking about the future self piece rather than the thinking about the just right now. And it goes all the way back to my very first question. Hey, I just want a plan. And I think it's just part of our culture now I want a workout plan for the next 6 weeks. I want investments for the next 6 weeks. I want accountability for just today. And so I think, kind of wrapping this up a little bit, it's important for people to think long term. And I don't think that we could beat that enough. Long term is very important. And a while back, you had mentioned there's a reason why we actually only think in the short term. And what was that from? Do you remember that?
Well, a lot of it is how our brains are wired. We are wired to try to survive today and hopefully live long enough to pass on our DNA. And nobody, like, this whole idea of thinking about problems 20 years from now is really pretty new.
Right.
I mean, you go back a few thousand years, you were just worried about not getting eaten today. And maybe a few hundred years ago, you were worried about eating today. What can I eat? Not necessarily what can eat me, but it was, if you were overly concerned with 20 years from now, you might not have enough crops for the moment, or something might eat you in your sleep. So we are by nature wired more to survive the moment rather than thrive in the future. And we've got to pull ourselves out of that. But I also think today's culture, with so many distractions, so much of the sensationalized news, whether it's non-financial, not like, all those things pull us into the moment or just distract us completely. We're binging out on Netflix, completely detached, not just from the moment, but from reality itself. So going back to what you said about accountability, Greg, is important. It's having somebody there that cares about you as a person. And that's the relationship capital that's built during those plan reviews. We're talking about what matters to somebody and then figuring out how to get there, rather than just talking about our investment tools and then someday in the future trying to figure out what we're going to build with them. But it's really getting to know that person, building that relationship capital, which we do have to call on at times of pronounced uncertainty, whether that's in their life individually, maybe a divorce, a loss of a family member, a loss of a job, maybe their company gets bought out and they're given a severance package. Like, all those times provide stress or produce stress where we need to draw on that relationship capital. Or maybe broader events like a recession or a major market collapse. Having that relationship, which this individual probably wasn't interested in, of accountability and the constant adjustments of the financial plan, like, that's really what makes the relationships work with our blue collar millionaires, is that we're doing this side by side. We're not giving them a set of directions or a recipe and sending them on their way. It's an ongoing, evolving process. And I can't stress this enough, this idea of this financial plan. It's a living document. It grows and adjusts with people as their goals become solidified, clarified, and as they even mature. We talk about somebody just wants a plan for, just give me a plan, I'll follow it. We know that doesn't work because gyms are empty. I mean, think about parenting, right? Like, you had all these ideas what parenting was going to be like, and then Logan was born. You're like,
this is way different.
You're not doing what the book says. I gave you your milk. I rocked you for 20 minutes. I swaddled you a certain way. You're supposed to be asleep right now. And then you adjust, right? Because life never goes according to plan. But what if you did? What if you did follow what if you were the fraction of 1% and you were able to be given a plan, you follow it to a T for 20 years? Well, that assumes that your goals never change. How often does that really happen, where the 20-year-old you wants the exact same things at 60 that the 40-year-old you wants at 60, or the 40-year-old thinks they want at 60. And then when you're 58 and a half, you realize, those things really aren't what I wanted. And this plan actually took me away from where I wanted to be because I've changed. What's important to me has grown, or at least evolved. I have a different perspective, but I've never updated my plan.
Right. Yeah, it's that course correction that we get to do. And, really what my thoughts are is that's kind of what makes our profession AI proof, is that we get to provide people a relationship that we work with for life. And we work with, like I said, for the rest of our lives and their lives, and beneficiaries as well, because we get to do these plan reviews. Every year we get to get an update and see how things are going. And I'm not telling people I'm limiting them. They're allowed to call me or email.
Yeah, I mean, life events come up, but even if you think nothing's changed, at least once a year, we want to reconnect, make sure we're all on the same page. Yeah. And we're doing everything we can to ensure that somebody is on the right path for where they want to be long term.
Well, Chad, I really appreciate it. Thanks for helping me with my questions. And I guess we'll see these guys next time.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us 2 quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.
The information expressed is for general information only and is not intended to provide specific investment advice or recommendations for any individual. It is suggested that you consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation. Hypothetical investment results are for illustrative purposes only and should not be deemed a representation of future results.